Hello and welcome back to LearnPianoLive.com. My name is Jamin, and usually I'm sitting over in the other chair, but our special guest, Levi Saelua. Yes.
Nice.
All right, is with us, and he's going to be talking about arranging and how he went from the MP3 that you guys have, which is the small group arrangement, right, for this
Quintet.
song, and how he took that to a full band. And so this is usually an intermediate lesson on Tuesdays, but this is going to have some pretty advanced concepts. Go ahead and send in your questions anytime you have them in the box below this video. Put your name and your question in there, and we'll get to those questions. And I'll try to jump in here and ask questions too. And I guess that's for all of you who wanted to hear him play. Let's start off with a little bit of sax here.
All right.
We're gonna go with Cantaloupe Island. So, whenever you're ready. Awesome. All right, here we go.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, that's real. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
All right, so this next thing has nothing to do with that at all. That was just for fun. But anyway, you are going to play these parts on the piano, and just to remind everybody, this obviously Levy's a sax player. But in my experience, most even horn players, everybody plays a little bit of piano. Everyone has to kind of noodle around just because of the way it's kind of visually laid out nicely and stuff, and to communicate with other musicians. So Levy plays a little piano. He's going to show us some stuff, so let's dig in.
All right. So, do you want to play a little bit of the MP3?
Yeah. Let me pull that up here.
Cool.
So this is your guys' download that you have as your MP3. Let me pull that up, and here we go. Now, how many instruments is this?
This is a quintet, so alto, trumpet, piano, bass. No, sorry, it's a sextet: guitar, piano, bass, and drums. So 2 horns and 4 rhythm sections.
So what would you call this part of the song?
I would call this the march. Yeah, you can hear a little bit, very faintly, the guitarist is playing some counterline to the melody. He was experimenting with a loop pedal at the time. Right there is where the drums open up into the cymbals, rather than just keeping the snare marching.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on so far and what you did with this?
All right, so that was essentially 2 times through the melody. The second time through has an extension in it, because the PDF that I gave you last time was the lead sheet for this recording.
Right.
So what I did was, I was lucky in that the rhythm section in that recording was the rhythm section that I was using for this full band arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have to do too much. I didn't want to do too much to what was already there, because they were already so familiar with how they had been playing it.
Right. Now this is your song?
This was written by a friend of mine, trumpet player on that recording. His name's Joe Kozlowski. He was also in my full band, my big band.
Right.
And so I took his tune and arranged it for the big band, just kind of as a joke. But when there were 3 of us who ran that big band, and I was sitting with one of the other guys, and at this recital, and when this tune finished, the whole time I've been thinking this would be kind of fun big band arrangement. And then right as the tune ended, the guy I was sitting next to turned to me. He's like, "You should arrange this for the band." I was like, "I think I will." So I talked to Joe, and he's like, "Well, I might do an arrangement." So I was like, "Okay, well, you do yours, and I'll stay out of it." But about a week later, he's like, "You know what? I'm probably not going to do it. So by all means, go ahead."
So why don't you take us through the first steps in taking that from a small group to a larger ensemble?
Okay, so this.
And we're reading along on the PDF with you.
Okay. Great. So I used in the recording, they just vamp with the drums doing the march pattern, but in a full band arrangement, it's pretty good to just get things moving a little more quickly. So I just had 4 bars of drums and then the 4 bars of the march. 4 bars of the march, and then have the melody come in after that.
Can you break down that voicing for us too?
Yeah, so this is actually a pretty important part of this tune, is just the interval of the fourth, perfect fourth. So he has fifths in the bass, which is actually an inverted fourth. So interval of the fourth upside down is a fifth. And then on top of that, he has the 1, 4, and flat 7, which are all a perfect fourth away from each other.
Right.
And so he just has that moving up and down in whole steps.
So if you had to call that some chord, what would you call that chord?
I would call it C7 sus.
Okay.
But what he calls it is C minor 7.
Okay.
Just because when the melody comes in, you get that E flat in there.
Yeah. Which is another fourth on top of the top note.
Exactly.
Right.
C, F, B flat, E flat. But what kind of makes that a little bit more dissonant is you have the C and G in the left hand going up to the D and the A against that E flat. So you have a D in the left hand and an E flat in the right hand, which is a really interesting dissonance. But since it keeps moving, it's a little less noticeable. Right. And since the ear naturally hears the C as the root, it doesn't rub you too much the wrong way.
Right.
Which is something that I like about Joe's writing is, I don't know if he really thinks about it that way, but it just sounds right to him.
Right.
Which is pretty cool.
So the first thing you did was take away some of the introductory march.
Yeah, I
pattern.
shortened the intro a little bit just because vamps you can kind of lose an audience if you vamp too long.
Right.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get to the material a little more quickly. So the first time through the melody, I kept it essentially just the same way that they played it, which is with an alto saxophone and a trumpet, with the rhythm section doing the march. So that's all the way through until measure 26, where
Okay.
the trombones come in there.
And this is your guys' PDF. So if you open up that PDF, then you'll have all these pages. It's kind of hard to read. In fact, you want to zoom in there and show us all the different parts that are on there?
Yeah, so we have, so there are 5 woodwinds, so an alto saxophone, 2 flutes, 1 clarinet, and bass clarinet. Then 4 trumpets, although 2 of them are doubling on flugelhorns, which is a mellower version of a trumpet. Then 4 trombones, then guitar, piano, bass, and drums.
So that entire page is just one, like that's one measure, right? On the left side,
Yeah.
like that, all the entire from the top to the bottom is
Exactly.
just a bunch of different instruments. That's all one measure.
Yeah, so that's one measure for 17 instruments.
Right. Right. Okay.
Which is why scores are so long. Yeah, so when between the first statement of the melody and the second statement of the melody in the quintet version, there's only 2 bars of the march of this
Right.
before the melody comes in again. I decided to extend it to 4 measures just to give it a little bit more room to breathe before everything comes in again.
Okay.
Because what I did on the second time through the melody was I wrote this counter line against the melody. So the melody's going along, and then the counter line comes in.
Right. And when we've discussed that before, we've talked about like counterpoints or contrapuntal pieces that like have a melody line, and then when that instrument stops, then another instrument comes in and like underneath it or on top of it or something like that. So you're saying that that's what you were writing in there. The melody was originally had those gaps in it. You filled in the gaps with some other melodic structure.
Exactly. Yeah. So what I tried to do in the cadential points, so the resolutions of each melodic line, was I tried to get the counterpoint to land on a major second, which is the interval that the left hand is moving in.
Right.
So at the end of that page, in measure 33, you can see the counterline ends on that C, and the top line is for alto saxophone, which is a transposing instrument, so it ends on a B flat, which is
A transposing instrument meaning what?
meaning that the flute is a non-transposing instrument, so it reads the same way if you would read piano music. It's read in the same pitch, but a transposing instrument sounds a different pitch than what's written, I guess is one way to say it.
So when a transposing instrument plays a C and the piano plays a C, they're not actually playing the same note.
Exactly. So an alto saxophone is an E flat instrument, which means that it has a written G, but it's actually sounding a B flat.
Right. So you guys say you're playing a G, but you're not really playing a G.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. So
Do you know why it's that way?
for ease of reading, I guess.
Okay.
That's my only guess.
All right. I don't know either.
Yeah.
All
It's
right.
unsolved mystery. So the end of that, both of those lines, so the melody ends there, and the counterline, they end an octave and a major second apart.
Right.
So the next 4 bars is a little bit more contrapuntal, but they also end a major second away. The melody ends in measure 37, the fourth measure of that page, on a concert F, and the counterline ends on the concert G. So that was essentially the thought process behind ending each of those lines. In constructing the counterline, though, I tried to match the melody with that interval of the fifth in the melody. So the counterline, instead of having a descending fifth like the melody, I have an ascending fifth as a kind of a call and response.
That's cool. That's cool. So just to break it down here, so far what we've got is strip down some of the vampy stuff so that the audience doesn't get bored, because you want to bring in more instruments, I guess, sooner. Yeah. And then we filled in the gaps with other instruments playing other melodic lines that are in some way related to the lines that come just before or just after it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I like to keep things related as much as possible.
Right.
And then the first time the first time through the melody, when the next four bars came in with that's actually a let's see, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's an eighth note ostinato, rhythmically speaking. So it's 8 eighth notes repeated, right? So
right, ostinato just meaning repetitive.
Right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Which is pretty cool when you superimpose that over 12/8. So it's kind of like 8/8 over 12/8, which means everything when that rhythm repeats, it's not lined up where it was before.
Right. Now you wrote that in too, or that was part of the original?
That was part of his melody.
Okay.
But what I did was I took that same melody and had it come in 1 and 2 eighth note, 5 eighth notes later, just to make it a little muddier.
Right.
Because when that finally resolves on the next page, it gives it a sense of resolution, a little bit more drama.
Yeah.
Which is hard to do with a quintet because you don't have 17 instruments at your disposal.
Right.
So when you do have those 17 instruments, it's nice to use them in a variety of ways. So this one I try to use as kind of just making everything a little bit murky for 4 bars, so that when you finally got the clarity back, it was like finally.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And just to call back to some of our previous conversations and other lessons too, that's essentially all we're doing here in music, is just creating tension and then releasing it.
Exactly.
So you're just saying with 17 instruments, you've got more opportunity to create cloudiness,
right,
that you can then resolve the cloudiness and be the magician and the miracle worker that finally gets rid of all the tension that you yourself created.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I'm doing.
Right.
It's just a series of creating tension and then releasing it. So it's all just a matter of deciding when you want to build the tension and when you want to release it.
Right.
So I felt like that was a nice arrival point there, because you can see the bass notes are going along in E flat, and then when it gets to measure 42, it goes up to E. So I wanted to make that a nice arrival point, not only for the bass note, but in terms of texture. So really full, dense texture, and then it finally resolves when the bass moves to a different note.
Right, right. Let me jump to that here in the song, and then also, just, we're already 21 minutes into this thing, dude.
Nice.
So that's like 2/3 of the way through. So just help you prioritize some of that stuff. So let me see if I can get that here. You tell me forward or back in the song what we're listening to. That jump up that you're talking about. So before that.
Forward.
Forward.
All right, here we go.
This is 130 in the MP3.
There's the resolution.
That's the resolution.
Yeah.
So let me go back again to like a minute. So this is a minute into the song.
All right. So we're going along here. Let's measure 34.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, so so the rest of it is pretty much just like the quintet version, but again, I add more counterpoint just to fill in the gaps.
Right, and there's a version of the big band version online on YouTube, right?
Yes,
At that same link that we had before.
right.
Cool. I'll put up a big fat link to that on our blog too again.
And then at 57, that mirrors the quintet version where the drums open up into the cymbals rather than just keeping the snare march going.
Right.
So you can see right there at the bottom of the page at measure 57 where it says ride cymbal. That's where I wanted him to. It was more of a reminder because he knew where it was, just to open it up and start playing more of a akin to what we call an Afro-Cuban 12/8 ride cymbal pattern.
Yeah, you want to go ahead and just. I'm sorry. I know that's a whole other can
Right.
of worms right there, but
Yeah.
it's an interesting one. Could we go ahead and jump into that for a second?
Sure. I'm not an expert on it, especially not ride cymbal patterns.
Right.
But
Afro-Cuban. It's something Latin.
right, it originates from Cuba.
Right.
It's just like in Congo Square in New Orleans, where European classical music met the African drumming rhythms. In Cuba, something similar happened, where the native music of Cuba, or the colonizers of Cuba,
Right.
the Spanish and the Latin countries, fused with the 12/8 patterns of African drumming. That's where the origins of the Afro-Cuban
Right.
style of music.
So can you play us something that is Afro-Cuban-ish, just as far as the rhythm is concerned, even if it's just one note?
Sure. So it would be so we're going along 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It would be just blanked. Actually, he probably plays
Okay.
the cymbal pattern. I think it's forward. Yeah.
In there?
Yeah. No, forward from that.
Okay.
All right. There it is.
Right then.
So it's a little more dressed up, but
Right. Yeah, and we've got a couple Latin groove lessons coming up anyway, so
Right.
we'll cover that in more detail. Sorry.
It's
Back
okay.
to your arrangement.
it's all right. So that's 3 times through that little section there. And then what I did here, it originally, in the quintet version, it does go to a piano solo, but it's a piano solo over, instead of this suspended sound, what Joe did was he made it a Lydian sound.
Wow.
So all he did was, instead of having that F and B flat on top, he moved those up a half step to F sharp and B natural. And then
Yeah,
moved those
right.
up in half steps, or whole steps, sorry. So the Lydian mode is, have you guys talked about the Lydian?
Yeah, in some past lessons. Essentially, it's a major scale with a raised 4.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, so what I did was I put in a little extension there at the end. So when we get there, the bass does, and then it finally resolves to that C Lydian sound there in measure 77 with that D triad with the second over the C.
Cool.
And so for the piano solo, instead of having just the march going, I extended each chord to last 4 bars as opposed to 1 beat. So we have that for 4 bars, and instead of going up, I went down for 4 bars, and then back up for 4 bars. And then we have that again going down, and continue that motion down, resolving to G Lydian.
Very cool. In our last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
What last things do you want to hit here before we're?
So yeah, since we only got that far in the recording, I think it's fine just to just to talk about that much.
Okay.
The whole piano solo there is essentially just based on that Lydian March section. Just I start bringing in more of the instruments to hold the harmony, the harmonic pads underneath the piano solo, so that the pianist is free to explore without having to play the harmony in his left hand.
Right, right. Like we've talked about before on other lessons, where you've got to, you should be taking care of the chords and stuff. And we're usually talking about playing in a smaller band type of a setting or a combo or something like that, where the piano player still has to like maintain the chords. So you're saying you want to take that responsibility away from his left hand and let him just focus on soloing in the right hand, which we all love. Thank you for that. And so you do that with all the horns and stuff.
Exactly. You can see I have all of the horns in, playing the harmony in long notes, which gives him enough space to really explore.
Right.
Because this piano player, in both recordings, the big band and the small group version, is one of the most creative piano players I've ever worked with. So if he doesn't have to worry about that, then he's free to roam.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, let me just real quick here. Let me reiterate some of this stuff, and then you go ahead and give me a last couple hints here. So, first thing I was hearing was that you're chopping up the vamp a little bit to jump into the music, taking the spaces in the melody and filling them in with other instruments. Since you can have a group of instruments play the regular normal melody, and then you've got these other spaces and these other instruments to fill in that stuff. We're double timing some of the melody parts. Right? Or altering where they come in. You said you moved the one over by like 5/8 notes or something like that, right?
Right.
And then changing modes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Extending and reducing the sections. So a verse or a chorus, an A section or a B section, making that longer or shorter.
Right.
Then using the other instruments to create the feeling of either tension. And I'm guessing with resolving that cloudiness and that tension, we're talking about playing fewer instruments, or are we just playing fewer notes total, or what's your idea in the resolution?
In resolving that kind of tension, if you have a lot of instruments playing different rhythms, in a more contrapuntal setting, the best way for me to resolve it is to just take out. Since there are a lot of seconds and really close intervals and clashing in that murky section, I just open it up into just a simple triad at 42. But it's still all the instruments, but now instead of all the pitches everywhere, it's only 3 pitches.
Right, and then you're doing the same thing with the rhythms. Instead of having all the rhythm, everybody hitting at a different time, you've kind of lined them all up, and they're back on track.
Everyone's hitting beat 1.
Right, and then the last thing I heard was using the other horns and stuff to create more harmonic support, so that I'm guessing the guitarist and the pianist don't have as much work to do there.
Right.
Don't have to fill it. Don't have to play as many notes.
Yeah, that's one of the perks of having a larger horn section is you can take away some of the responsibilities that they would normally have in a small group setting.
Right. So then on top of that, is there anything else you would add as far as like general principles or how you use the band to take a song and
something that I'll add to what you just recapped was in filling in the spaces with the other instruments. I only did that because I had already stated the melody as simply as possible with just the alto saxophone and the trumpet playing the melody with the piano, bass, and drums playing the march. Then the second time through, that's when I started filling in the holes, because it can be a little overwhelming for a listener to just all of a sudden have everything all at once.
Right.
So,
save a little something for a little later.
Right, and so it's a balance, like shortening the vamp just to get to the material, and then keeping the material as simple as possible, just so you can ease the listener into the more complex stuff.
Right. All right. Very cool. It always seems too short. But before we go, could we hear a little more sax?
Sure.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Let me pull up some other stuff here, see what other tunes we've got. We haven't talked about this before. I got on tap here, Footprints, Impressions, Maiden Voyage, Satin Doll, Song for My Father, Summertime, Watermelon Man.
Sounds like volume 54 to me.
That is the one that I have open. Yes, indeed.
Footprints is fine.
Footprints. All right, here we go. I just said footprints. Where is it? Oh, it's under F. Okay.
All right. I can't remember. Is there an intro on this, or does it? Let's start going.
Very nice. Thank you. And then, real quick, Chad in the chat wants to know what is volume 54 and why is that funny?
Uh, it's the Jamie Aebersold series of play-alongs, and he has over 100 volumes now. But volume 54 is called Maiden Voyage, and it has a selected list of tunes, and all the tunes that Jamin just listed off are all in volume 54.
Yeah, yeah. So Jamie Aebersold is kind of like, at least in my world, like one of the first real big modern jazz education guys.
Yeah.
And so he just started making these play-along tracks, just CD after CD after CD, books and books and books. And yeah, you get to book 54, and it's called Maiden Voyage, like I said. So anyway, all the jazz players, I think of our era, I don't know about younger players than us or older players, but guys that are our age approximately are all kind of know Jamie Aebersold if we've been playing jazz.
And
So
we usually start with volume 54.
really? Is that okay?
That was the first one that I started with.
It was the first one I started with.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, apparently.
All right, cool. Well, anyway, thank you so much, Levi, for joining us, and we'll definitely touch bases with you again sometime soon, or when we hit learnsaxlive.com or something. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for joining us. And then the rest of you, tomorrow night we're doing more of the advanced ideas for making your own covers for songs. So has nothing to do with tonight at all. So anyway, join us for that, or join us next week when we're on an entirely new topic. And send us your questions. If you're in the archives, then fill out the survey. Let us know what you think of this lesson, upcoming lessons. Let us know what you want. These are your lessons, so we want to teach what you want to learn. See you next time.